I really wish I had an Indiana Jones hat for this video. What's going on, guys? I'm Chris. Welcome back to another video. I'm extremely excited about this one. I'm going to be ranking all 4 Indiana Jones movies from my least favorite to favorite, but thank you all for clicking on this video. Definitely hit the like button, consider subscribing if you haven't already, and definitely drop your ranking of all 4 Indiana Jones movies down below because I'm interested to have a discussion about all of these movies, and I just finished rewatching all 4 of these, so my thoughts are very fresh. So coming in last place for me is going to be Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, the 4th film in the franchise that came out in 2008. It hurts me to talk about this one because I have so much nostalgia for it. I truthfully will always cherish my theatrical experience. I saw it with my dad in theaters. It was the first Indiana Jones movie that came out in my lifetime. I thought it was the coolest thing ever. I really liked Shia LaBeouf. He was in the Even Stevens show and Holes, and his addition. I enjoyed that father-son duo, and I thought his character was so cool. Just seeing Indy on the big screen, it lit up some fire inside of me. But I can't talk about this movie without acknowledging the blatant issues and flaws. There's horrible CGI, from the gophers to the absurd antics of him surviving a nuclear blast in a refrigerator. There's just so many situations that are unrealistic and laughable at times. There's literally a scene where there is a bunch of CGI ants that start to build a tower to try and get to the villain and kill her. Ants. What are we doing here? And then you get to the aliens aspect of the movie and it's like, what? That's what we're building up to, is aliens? It really does not fit the vibe of the first 3 movies. It's missing that classic adventure vibe. The stakes aren't as elevated in my opinion, and the practicality of the first 3 films is missing. The sets are all practical and the action sequences are all practical in those first 3 movies, and they input way too much CGI in this movie. You can tell George Lucas might have had a little bit too much input on this movie, honestly. But overall, there's still some fun to be had. I like the small scenes where Indy's talking to Shia LaBeouf's character, Mutt, when he's telling him the story about the Crystal Skull. That's one of my favorite scenes in the entire movie. So there are smaller moments like father-son and between Mary and Ravenwood as well that are sweet, and they remind me of those classic Indy movies. There's just way too much unbelievability. And the movies do get more and more wild as you go on, but there are some insane moments where I'm like, this is too far removed. It's almost like how Die Hard, the 4th Die Hard movie, John McClane becomes a superhero. It's almost what they did with Indiana Jones here. I could sit here and rant about this movie forever. I still enjoy it more than the common person. I love this movie growing up. Nostalgia is a real thing, so I am aware of that. I still have fond memories of it. Overall, it's just by far the worst. I hope the 5th one is a bit of a course correction. You get James Mangold in there to direct it, bring some fresh air to the franchise. Coming in at number 3 for me is going to be Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, the 2nd film in the franchise. So story time with this one, this is actually the last Indiana Jones movie I saw. So growing up, my neighbors next door had the VHS set of all 3 Indiana Jones movies. I obviously had seen the 1st and 3rd one at my house, but I knew the 2nd one had a reputation for being a darker movie. And I kind of got freaked out by movies a lot as a kid and like TV. I was very weird. I don't know why I got freaked out so easily. I was about 8 years old. I really wanted to watch Temple of Doom. And my neighbors, they were older, so they always told me, oh, there's a scene where this guy gets his heart ripped out. There's voodoo doll. There's all this dark stuff. And I was freaked out by it. So in my head, I had built up this massive expectation of the movie just being terrifying and so graphic and gory that I kind of didn't watch the movie until I was 14 years old for the first time. And when I did watch it, it wasn't that bad. I was like, oh, that's not that bad. It's just, as a kid, you build up things in your head, right? So that's what happened with Temple of Doom. But the thing about this movie is, it's by far the darkest. It is a dark movie. So all those things that I was told are true. They're a little cheesy at times because the effects are obviously from 1984, so they don't hold up as much, but someone does get their heart ripped out. There's human sacrifice, there's voodoo dolls, there's child abuse, essentially. I believe there's actually stories that Steven Spielberg was at a dark place in his life, so that's why the movie is so damn dark at times. But at its core, it still has those adventure vibes of Raiders of the Lost Ark, the film's predecessor. Also, this is actually a prequel to Raiders of the Lost Ark. I don't know if many people know that. I think it's kind of common knowledge for us big fans, but it's set in 1935, Raiders is set in 1936. Fun fact. I will say that Willie is the most annoying, is extremely just damsel in distress, helpless, extremely loud and irritating for most of the movie, which is a flaw, but on the other hand, you get Short Round, who might be the best side character in an Indiana Jones movie. Dr. Jones! He's just so funny, he adds so much comedy to every situation he's in. There's also a great scene where they're in mine trains, and it almost reminds me of a roller coaster, Big Thunder Mountain Railroad from Disney World. If they ever want to make an Indiana Jones roller coaster, they could definitely go off Temple of Doom. Mola Ram is a very scary villain. His presence is terrifying. But when it comes to absurdity and the believability of surviving things, now that I think about it, I think the Temple of Doom might have the most unbelievable scene in all of Indiana Jones. Absolutely no way they survive, but hey, it's fun. Temple of Doom is dark and gritty, but like I said, it maintains that classic adventure that really makes an Indiana Jones movie an Indiana Jones movie. But coming in at number 2 for me, my runner-up is going to be Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. The film came out in 1989, and it's damn close to being my number 1. The addition of Sean Connery as Henry Jones Sr., the father of Indiana Jones, adds a whole nother level to this movie. That's one of the best father-son duos in cinematic history, in my opinion. Junior! Sala is brought back from Raiders of the Lost Ark, and Marcus Brody as well. So you bring back 2 of the great characters from Raiders of the Lost Ark that add some comedy to it, but also make it feel more at home and more welcoming and warming. This movie is way more family-friendly than Temple of Doom, and I love the opening sequence with River Phoenix, rest in peace, playing a young Indiana Jones. We get a little bit of an origin story. It's one of the coolest, most badass openings to the Indiana Jones movies, because I like seeing young Indiana Jones, and I know there was a TV show called Young Indiana Jones. I never explored that. I would like to see a Young Indiana Jones series of movies nowadays. I think the Holy Grail is a more desirable object than some ancient stones that Indiana Jones is trying to find for a village, or even a crystal skull. And they do a great job of setting up the Grail as a desirable object because Henry Jones, Indiana Jones' father, has basically devoted his entire life to having this diary where he tracks how to find the Holy Grail. And so the Nazis who were brought back as villains, which again is something that was missing in Temple of Doom, the Nazis basically are using Henry Jones to try and hunt down this thing. You get some awesome action sequences, whether it's the tank scene towards the third act of the movie, that's badass, or even the boat scene in Venice. And again, when it comes to the practicality of these movies, it's really mind-blowing. The scene where Indiana Jones is going through the different trials to get to the Grail is all practical, basically, and it's really mind-blowing that they were able to create sets that are so immersive into this world. So when it comes down to Last Crusade, it's the most lighthearted of the 4. It's got a great father-son duo, and we get to see some classic Indiana Jones action and adventure, and it's damn near my favorite film from the franchise. It's extremely close. But coming in at number 1 for me, taking the top spot, has to be Raiders of the Lost Ark, the original 1981 film that should have won Best Picture. I don't know why it didn't, but I want to say I do have a Now Playing video on my channel where I have a movie night vlog for this movie, so definitely check that out if you want to see me go in depth with it and give you guys my reaction to every scene. But I seriously remember watching this movie for the first time like it was yesterday. It just enchanted me, and it's one of those movies that made me fall in love with movies. It's lightning in a bottle, and the pacing is perfect. There's not a single dull or slow moment in this movie. It's masterfully written. It's the pinnacle of adventure movies because in the entire last hour of the movie, you go from being in the Well of Souls to having the fight where Indiana Jones fights the dude next to the plane, to going into the truck chase sequence, to going into the final climax with the Ark and the Wrath of God. It is so perfectly paced. The opening is easily the best of the 4 movies, but it's one of the best openings of all time. You cement Indiana Jones as a badass without him saying a single line of dialogue. All he has to do is whip his whip and step out of the shadow into the light, and you're like, this is where a legend is born. And I firmly believe Indiana Jones is one of, if not the most iconic movie characters of all time, and this rewatch has actually solidified him as my favorite movie character of all time. The score by John Williams for all 4 movies is perfect, but here it's immaculate. I think it's the top 3 best movie themes of all time. Star Wars, Indiana Jones, and maybe Jurassic Park or Jaws are all up there. Harry Potter, of course, is iconic too. This is the most quotable Indiana Jones movie. It has the most legendary scenes as well. It's flawless in my opinion. It's in my top 10 favorite movies of all time. I'm looking at the poster right over there, the re-release poster. I love it. It's where Indy's got the whip. But Raiders of the Lost Ark is easily one of my favorite movies of all time. It's one of the most rewatched movies in my lifetime, and I will always remember the first time I saw it. And again, if you really want to see me dive into Raiders of the Lost Ark, go check out my Now Playing video. I had a total blast rewatching it. So yeah, that's going to do it for my ranking of all 4 Indiana Jones movies. Definitely hit the like button, comment your ranking down below. What's your favorite and least favorite? Do you think King of the Crystal Skull is underrated? Do you think Raiders of the Lost Ark is overrated? I want to know all these things and more down below. Thank you for watching. Again, if you haven't already, consider hitting that subscribe button. I do rankings, reviews, vlogs. I'm about to go out to California and I'm going to have a ton of content in the month of July, so stay tuned for that. Comment down below what movie franchise I should rank next between the Godfather trilogy, the new Planet of the Apes trilogy, and the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I'm going to be picking one of those to rewatch and rank here on the channel next. Comment down below, #Indiana Jones if you made it to the very end. And until next time, I'll see you guys later.